On in the room. Come on in the room. Bucks losing again. This is becoming a common theme since the firing of Dr. Griffin because I wasn't used to saying Bucks lose. So this is killing my intro. But the Bucks lose 129-105. Doc Rivers is 1-5 as the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Come on in the room, Doc. Trying to be our doctor, he's committing malpractice. He's
Right.
writing he's writing out scriptures. I don't know, but he's a doctor, and we are in the room. 129-105. The Minnesota Timberwolves beat down the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. We are live at the Cream City Crossovers. The Guru Trey Crosby III.
JT, I think Doc's writing prescriptions with his eyes closed.
Chris King.
Yeah. We got everybody in the building. The trade deadline was today. Bucks, they didn't stand. Well, they did stand pat. They got a pat. Didn't move a pat, but they got a pat. But so that was interesting. The Bucks do acquire Patrick Beverly. They ship out Campaign, and in turn tonight they were shorthanded. No Damian Lillard. No Chris Middleton. No Campaign. No point guard for the Bucks tonight. It was understandable that they were going to lose. They didn't really put up much of a fight. And, I mean, if you didn't have this career high from A.J. Green, I mean, I don't know what the score may have looked like, but it was 129-105. The Timberwolves win it. You can get at me at TCIIESQ. Get your comments heard and read, and also in the YouTube. The TCIIESQ is on the Twitter. Then you can also listen to us, watch us on Twitter as well as the YouTube. So we appreciate it. If you do that, like, follow, subscribe, all those good things. But first, as always, we got to get to our game recap tonight, 129-105. It's sponsored, as always, by the law office of Daly M. Johnson. When you need defense, where?
Off the court.
Off the court. And you know what? The Bucks think they're going to get some defense off the court because you have Pat Beverly coming into your team. So that we'll add him to our team in the law office of Daly M. Johnson, serving up criminal defense, trafficking OWI defense, temporary restraining orders, and injunctions. Call the law office of Daly M. Johnson, service Central and South Central Wisconsin, 608-893-8370. You can also go to his website, www.dmjlaw.com. Sign up for free phone or in-person consultation. That's the law office of Daly M. Johnson. When you need that defense, you're drinking yourself into a sorrow. You're upset about what's going on. You're leaving the Fiserv Forum mad that the Bucks aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. You're upset that the John Horst didn't get the trades you wanted. You don't want to be like Haywood Highsmith and run people over. Right. You heard about Haywood Highsmith running people over and reckless driving. Listen, if Haywood was in Wisconsin, I would tell him to call the law office of Daly M. Johnson. I say, dog, you running people over, now they paraplegics, you got to call 608-893-8370. That's what I would do. So I'm just saying. But let's get to the game recap. He'd help you out. Daly M. Johnson will help you out through all of that. Let's get to the game recap.
That's so too soon, bro.
Man,
that is way too soon.
Yo, like, there's some people that might want to call Daly M. Johnson because of a speeding ticket or something, right? Or maybe, like, there's an issue or something. Maybe they want to get their record expunged or they want to get something. They want to have a consultation, right? Like, everything don't have to be for something completely crazy, even though, I do think you call him a criminal attorney, right, most of the time. Things are pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah, it's dysfunctional if people will be in wheelchairs for the rest of their life. Jay Crowder, I'm sorry, it's late night. This is Cream City Crossover, baby. Jay Crowder gives you 21 and 8 tonight. Giannis in 27 minutes, 17.7 assists, 3 rebounds. It was just a struggle tonight for Giannis. He was playing a lot of point guard, and one of the things I saw from Giannis, I thought Rudy Gobert did a really good job on him. But the other thing is, Minnesota had a great plan because again, there's no Damian Lillard. There's no gravity. I know some people think that Damian Lillard, the only thing he provides is gravity. Well, you did see that he didn't. There was no gravity. There are 4 or 5 guys in the paint. You're relying on guys to make shots. They did some of that early, kept it as close as they could, but you just knew that Jay Crowder wasn't going to play like this all night long. He hit some threes early. Brook Lopez with 12 points, 5 boards. Malik Beasley, your boy JT, was out there. I mean, woo! What's today? It already passed, but he was January 13th tonight.
Hey man, hang on.
Hey,
Anytime it's
Listen.
January, anytime it's
Listen, there's been a
January, you
whole
know it's
lot of
bad.
folks shooting tour dates lately. Why can't Malik get him one? Why can't Malik book him a show?
He did. He
Whole lot
got
of
him
shows
one.
being booked. Whole lot of shows being booked with this lineup. Malik had to get him.
And he is right there with them. 32 minutes, 3 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. Pat Connaughton, 9 points, 9 assists tonight. He played a lot of quote unquote point guard, 4 for 6 from the field. He wasn't good though, but I mean he does eke out a double, close to double in 38 minutes of action. Bobby Portis goes 12, 9, and 3. He 12 points, 12 shots. Andre Jackson Jr. plays 17 minutes, doesn't score. AJ Green tonight. We got to talk about him, the hot man. 27 points. He was 9 for 11 and 7 of 8 from 3. The arena, it's kind of crazy because you're in this middle of this loss, you're getting beat down, and AJ Green is just firing up threes, and the arena's chanting AJ Green. You're getting AJ Green chants down like 25. So I thought that was pretty cool. The Bucks fans clearly weren't too upset. Jay McDaniels, 8 points, 3 boards. Karl-Anthony Towns. It was, Karl-Anthony Towns, like every time he was driving to the basket, I don't know, I'm just on one tonight. He drove the basket. Oh my God. Every time he drove to the basket, oh my God. And just listen to the game every single time. Like, dog, like, and you know how he talks. So it was just real, man. Charlie Towns was like, nah, I won't say it, but Karl-Anthony Towns was really on some stuff tonight. Because he wasn't getting a lot of foul calls. He only took he took 2 free throws tonight, so he started screaming for the calls. It was real weird. Rudy Gobert, really good night for him, 16, 11, and 4. Anthony Edwards, 26, 9, and 3. Again, Beasley, I thought Beasley tried as hard as he could tonight. Defensively, he tried, but you just can't stop Anthony Edwards. And again, it seems like it's a recurring thing from Beasley where I don't think it's not for lack of effort. He just can't defend these type of high level players. And then of course Mike Conley, I got him with the over under. His over under was 10 points at 10.5, and he put up 18. What do we do, Chris King? Underdog prize picks.
You hammer that over on the opposing team's guards.
Over on the guards, baby. We do it. And Nasri was 17 points. Kyle Anderson 8 points as well. So yeah, I'll just do a quick game recap here. Tonight was tough. No point guard, no Chris, no Dame. The Bucks held on for I think as long as they could. What you needed tonight was Giannis to play at a very, very high level. Was Giannis to overcome a lot of things. You needed Beasley to have, again, I'm not going to say he's going to shoot 7 for 8 from 3. You needed Beasley to play more like AJ Green and give you that type of production. You needed 30 and 15 from Giannis. You only got 17. Jay Crowder with 20. I thought, so again, the 2 bright spots tonight, AJ Green getting his points up, and Jay Crowder was 7-11 from the field, 4-5 from 3. That's a bright spot that you're going to have to watch as a guy that, can he get his legs back? Because I think a lot of people soured on Jay Crowder. But I recognize he played very well before the injury. He gets injured, he comes back, he's been struggling. But if he can get his legs under him and start shooting the ball like we know he can, that's going to be a big addition for the Milwaukee Bucks as the season goes on. I just don't have a lot. We'll talk about some trades in a little bit. But Doc Rivers is 1-5 as the head coach. The Bucks lose 129-105 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's what I saw. JT, what did you see?
Well, listen, I would agree with everything that you said. I think the Jay Crowder and Derry Bird. Now, I'm gonna give Derry Bird his due. For those of you all who are new to the show, Marcus Johnson called him Derry Bird, AJ Green. That's who we're talking about. I love the fact that he had this night, right? We saw glimpses of it in the last couple of games where you saw AJ Green you saw like, wow, he can really kind of shoot this thing, and he is a deadly 3-point shooter. I talked about AJ Green, right? When I told you about the 40-40 club on the Bucks, right? The only 3 players on the team to be shooting over 40% from 3 and the field. AJ Green was one of them. So, certainly got to give credit there, right? I think the other 2 were Malik Beasley and Campaign. So you saw that tonight. You saw AJ Green get his moment. And my thing with this is I think you have to keep giving AJ Green some run. You 100% do. You need to keep giving him some playing time out there. The only way he's going to get better is to play, and he can be an impact player for you, at least in a limited role. Quite honestly, I agree with you. I think AJ Green should take some of Pat's minutes, right? I effectively do. And if that ends this thing for Andre Jackson Jr., which, listen, the red shirt's on him. then so be it. Second observation: Andre Jackson Jr. tonight. You guys realize he played the same amount of minutes tonight as he's played in the last 7 games combined. Uh, uh, that's astonishing, right? And plays right around 18 minutes tonight. So yeah, that's another observation. Jay Crowder, I agree with you. I think the thing that a lot of people forget is remember how strong Jay Crowder, or not strong, remember how well Jay Crowder was playing early in the season before he got injured, right? And we were even saying that Malik Beasley may go to the bench if Jay Crowder keeps this up. Remember earlier in the season, or you guys were saying that he should go to the bench. There's a possibility that Jay Crowder does earn a starting spot in this lineup, and I think you certainly have to acknowledge that's a thing, right? Especially if that shot's hit, especially if he can get buckets and continue to give you something on the defense. I'm gonna stop here because I want to dig a little bit more into the trade, how all that turns out, how all that will play out. But I want to give Chris a chance to go ahead and give his analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's tough when you have no point guard, and this kind of shows the importance of being able to have 2 guys that can facilitate an offense, and that's a little bit more athletic than Pat, and a little bit better at facilitating than Pat is. And yeah, it's just a bad effort too, and not much you can really analyze off of this one. Just guys just played like crap for real. I mean, Malik Beasley, 1 of 13, that'll do it. I mean, not even just that. Down the line, everybody played horrible. Love to see the energy from Derry Bird, especially because I do think he's a better defender than Pat Connaughton. So I think that he really has a chance at stealing those minutes. But other than that, maybe good to see Andre Jackson Jr. and Marjon Beauchamp get in the game at least, but they didn't show much either. So it's like not much to be analyzing or be proud of tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's a lot you can really take from this game with so many guys out. And again, the Bucks are a very top heavy team, and so when you are top heavy, when guys are out, it impacts you. You just don't have the depth. I got a buddy who's a Cleveland Cavaliers fan who talked about and rightfully so, when Darius Garland being out and Evan Mobley being out, how the Cavs have played very well. And I think they just got back into the lineup, but they played very well without those guys. But again, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a very depth field team where you can withstand some of those injuries. You don't just have you don't again. Donovan Mitchell's a great player, but he's not at the level of a Giannis. Again, when you look at the premier teams in the league. Your Denver's, when Denver's missing Jamal Murray, they're in trouble. When the 76ers, Embiid and Maxey, they're in trouble. So those premier teams will struggle when their best players are out. Some of the teams have a little more depth, can maybe muster through it a bit. So I want to stop before we go to the trades, because like I said, I don't think you learn a lot. I do want to stop and talk about Doc Rivers for a second. Doc is 1-5 right now. We assessed I think the last show we kind of talked about, what we thought about him, and and where he was at, and what was going on, and just how he's been, and what we think he's doing, the job we think he's done. Couple things on Doc for me. I know there are some people that are coping to say the defense looks a lot better, and I agree. I think in some spots it has looked better. The offense has not, to me, but I do think Doc Rivers has got to figure out this rotation, and quickly. I think the Bucks overall are in an okay spot, but he's got to, like I said, the Pat Connaughton plays 38 minutes tonight, and again, the impact was low, and I get there's a lot of people out, but I don't understand how Marjon Beauchamp on a night like tonight plays the same amount of minutes as Thanasis. I don't get that. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So Doc has to figure out very quickly who can play on this basketball team and when they can play, when they get in the game. Because AJ Green, like you said, he could take some of Pat's minutes. Like, Pat is almost at the level of needs to be a DNP CD, where you sitting there with an asses. And again, like I said, we'll talk about the trades and what didn't happen and what did happen. But yeah, Doc's just got, I get it, because he's new to the team and he's trying to figure this thing out and work it out, and and you go with the name that you know, because Pat Connaughton's a veteran. You go with the guys that you know. Pat Connaughton should not be playing 30 plus minutes. I don't care who's out. Pat Connaughton's he's not that guy. What is it? You're not the guy, pal. He's not that guy. So that's just something Doc's got to figure out. And again, he has 30, and that's why I'm trying not to judge Doc Rivers. I'm trying not to do. And I'll say this too. The funny thing is, you have and I'm talking about this too. There's so much patience right now from the Bucks fan base that they have with Doc Rivers that they didn't have with Adrian Griffin, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But I keep that same amount of patience for Doc that I did with AG. But he's got to figure out what this team is and who guys are. He has about 30 or so games to figure it out and who he has left on his basketball team and who can play. But he's got to figure that out. And because right now he does not have a pulse on what players are impact players versus what players are still on the team because of things they may have done yesteryear.
I would 100% agree with that. My issue is, Doc is acting like, when you say that, when you talk about not having an idea of the rotations, it's because, you don't know your roster. Doc is acting like a guy who just got here, a few days ago, because Doc is a guy who just got here a few days ago. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of the season here. And, these guys under Adrian Griffin, they were 30-13. They didn't lose a whole lot, right? They didn't lose a whole lot when you think about it. Out of 43 games, they won 30 of them. That's not a whole lot of losing, right? And if you really want to do this math, Doc is 1-5. This team was 30-13. You were a couple losses away from being like half the games Adrian Griffin lost in 3 months. You done lost in your first 3 weeks. That's not a good look at all, right? And so I think that's an issue, because my concern is we're 1-5 now. 1-5 turned into 1-7. That turned into 1-10. That turned into 1-11. And then all of a sudden, guys, it's natural to start questioning, like, man, he don't know what he's doing. What's going on here? This is what we're doing, and this is working. I don't know. I'm not sure Doc is I don't know how plugged in he is right now, right? I don't know if Doc is utterly clueless. I got to tell you, you got Pat Connaughton playing 37. Have you been watching Bucks games all year? I don't know. And like you said, I think you even tweeted this. Maybe Pat's showing you some good things in practice, right? Pat's getting a lot of good looks in practice, and there's stuff we don't see. Maybe there's stuff that we as fans don't see, but if you're, the Bucks player personnel staff, you're watching on film, Pat is doing some good things. I don't know. The other thing, though, is Pat has got to, when you talk about those rotations in Doc, you have got to find a young player that you trust. He trusts none of them, right? It took Chris and Dame being out to get for Andre Jackson Jr. to even touch the court, right? And Derry, same thing. Like Doc's, I agree with you. He's got to figure it out, but he's got to trust the young guys, because at this point, having a redshirt all these guys, I mean, somebody's going to step up. You got to give somebody an opportunity.
I think, well, if you're already thinking about questioning Doc Rivers so far in his performance, it's not from tonight, just because they had guys out. And I think you're more so questioning the getting outscored by 27 in the fourth quarter to the Utah Jazz and losing on the road to a Portland Trail Blazers team you should have beat. So I think those are more of the concerning efforts where you had guys in the lineup and you ended up dropping them. So yeah, I mean some of the things, yeah, they're a little concerning, but I still give them time. I still think, you add Pat Bev into the fold, and obviously Pat's minutes aren't going to stay that high. And hopefully the on-court stuff does show that Pat shouldn't be getting this amount of usage and getting the ball in his hands. So, I just think that obviously Adrian Griffin did a pretty good job as a rookie head coach, but I think there's still room for Doc to kind of turn this thing around, especially with some additions that or with one addition. Sorry.
Yeah, no, there's definitely room for improvement. And to both of you guys' point, like, the trade deadline did not address the bit, like there was no big roster shakeup on the bench, and so Doc Rivers is going to have to. The only way to shake the bench up, from what Doc has, is to shake up the minutes that the bench guys are getting. And so the guy who's been a constant and has continued to play tons of minutes. And again, I don't know what you can do about Bobby Portis, because you don't have another big that can play. I know what you can do in the playoffs. You can limit. You can just play Brook and Giannis more. And maybe you can go to some small ball lineups and that sort of a thing, depending on matchups. But so you really can't do anything about the Bobby Portis minutes as of now, but you can. Pat doesn't have to play. Like, he just doesn't. And so hopefully he's seeing that AJ Green shoots the ball well. You can trust him. And again, we talked about his defense. He's just been a very smart, very good player. But yeah, it's just something Doc's got to figure out. Doc's got to do. Get to a couple comments here. Niram Ganem says, can't, and this is just, I hate this kind of comment. It says, can't blame Dame anymore. I get that Dame has been off, but even when he's not scoring the way he should, he's dictating the pace of the game. We need Dame back ASAP. Like, when you say can't blame Dame anymore, like nobody said that you could win without him. I mean, yeah, that's not like that. Like that was never the discussion or the talking point that you can't, that somehow like Dame was being blamed for losing a game. Like what we're saying is that in the games Dame has played, that they've had an opportunity to win. The games that he has not played well in, that's where the criticism has come. Not that like, well, take Dame out altogether and we need to play without. Like, I don't think anybody's said that. So I mean, because the loss is the same. Like if tonight Dame had shot a tour date and wasn't good, and the Bucks lost by 6. Yes, he would still be getting blamed. Like, doesn't matter if he lost by 20 something tonight. A loss is a loss. So yeah, no, yes, I just don't understand that comment. But the other thing I'd say, Chris, that Portland loss and that Utah, those were bad losses. Like, there's no way around it for Doc Rivers. Those were really bad losses. King of Kings says Bucks should have got younger next to Giannis. Crazy. Charles Miller says at least we had AJ Green for a bright spot. Green Ranger says, yep, that was ugly. And James Henderson says, I knew Pat wasn't going to get traded when he was playing golf with Doc, and he said he had to get his confidence back. So yeah, just a couple of comments. There was one more I was going to read that I thought was funny on Twitter, but I can't find it right now. I'll get back to it when I have a shot to read some other things here. Let's go to the trade. So I think we're good. Bucks lost. It is what it is. Not a lot to be learned from that basketball game, but the Bucks do acquire Patrick Beverley. A pair of trades that went down with the 76ers. The Bucks get Patrick Beverley, who's been averaging 6 points across 47 games for Philly this year. Philly gets Cameron Payne, who's basically been averaging about 6 points for the 76ers. For the Bucks this year, also shooting about 40% from 3. And the 76ers also got Buddy Hield. But let me ask you guys, what do you feel about Patrick Beverley to the Milwaukee Bucks? I guess I'll quickly just say I think that Pat Bev does secure a need. The Bucks were trying to get better point attack perimeter defenders. He does that, and I think the other thing that he does is he gives you that no nonsense, type of guy who probably talks above his weight class, where he will say the uncomfortable things that like you may be waiting on a Giannis to say or a team leader to say, but they won't say. Pat Bev doesn't really have that filter, and he will say it. He's one of the guys that I think, one of the few guys that I think may hold a Giannis accountable or hold a whole team accountable when things aren't going well and getting guys' faces. And I think the Bucks need some of that. They talked about it on ESPN, earlier today when they announced the trade. I think Richard Jefferson was saying it, like, the Bucks need to get uncomfortable. And Patrick Beverley may bring some uncomfortable situations to that locker room by being the type of guy who, like I said, will punch above his weight class and maybe talk to some guys and get under people's skin and ruffle some feathers. And I think that's what this team needs. So I'm happy about the Patrick Beverley addition. What do you guys think?
So one follow-up question I have to ask, though, is that too much for this team? Because when we talk about the team needing a guy who get in people's faces and be uncomfortable and agitate, right, punch above his weight class, you still have a new coach here. You have a new coach. This team has gone through this change. You had a coach fired in the middle of the season. You still got a new coach coming in. You got Dame going through, whatever off the court too, right? So then you bring in a guy like Patrick Beverley, and the team is 1-5 right now. This team ends up being 2-12, 2-13. It just seems like, wait, hang on, hey, does this become too much? Does this become a toxic environment very, very quickly, right? That's just something that I think you have to think about, right? Because it's good when the team is winning, when you have people like that getting people's faces, holding people accountable, but it is not necessarily a great thing when this team is in a slump and people are on the verge of checking out, right? Coaches on the verge of losing the locker room and everything else too. So I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One thing I love about Pat Beverley is I think he's like 6'2", like 6'1", 6'2". He's very small. He's kind of Dame size, right? He might not even be 200 pounds, but he's got, I want to say, a 6'8" wingspan. He can guard perimeter players. He can guard guards. He's very quick. Can fight over screens. He's a scrappy guy. Puts a lot of pressure on people. He tips a lot. He tips a lot of passes. Right. Gets in the passing. I was going to say tip something, but I don't want y'all to pause me. So yeah. Um, tips a lot of passes. Definitely gets in the passing lane. I like the addition because it does bring, I think, some toughness and some defense. We love Beasley and Dame, but neither one of them can really play, and they're not going to play any defense, right? So this addition to Pat Beverly, yeah, gives the Bucks some options, and I'm excited about it. It's not the needle mover that I wanted, as I wanted to see the bench game. I wanted to see Pat and Bobby get up out of here, but at the end, it's a plus. I give it a B. If I had to grade this trade, I give it a B.
I like it. I think it solves some of the issues that you had defensively, especially because we talked about earlier on before the trade deadline about how it would be nice to get somebody like a Marcus Smart. I think Pat Bev is probably the closest to that that you saw dealt in the trade deadline today. So I think that'll definitely provide something defensively. And it also provides, like Trey said, you bring in a guy who is definitely going to have those battles and bring the best out of Dame. But also he has familiar faces, right? He was on the FaceTime call with Malik Beasley. He's played under Doc. So I think there's some familiarity there, and I think that'll bring a lot. And I think Giannis could thrive under having Pat Bev on the same team too, because Pat Bev he's a pest, and
Yep.
He's gonna get under people's skin, and he's gonna battle for his superstar, like we've seen him do in pretty much every stop he's been in. So you get a veteran who by no means, he's old, and maybe we did need to get younger a little bit, or maybe we do in the future, but he's been in big games. He's played in big games, played in big series, and that's what we need at this moment. So I think it's a pretty good addition for the Bucks, and also I agree, JT, it's not the needle mover that we could have had.
Pat Beverly is an irritant. He is a guy, like you said, Chris. He's gonna get under people's skin. He's a dog. I think somebody in the chat said he's an absolute dog. He's a dog, and that's why I have to make sure people wait. He's a dog, and so when you have one of those, you needed somebody to get nasty. You needed somebody to get feisty. If the Bucks I honestly believe they're going to turn this thing around. You got a very favorable schedule. We talked about in the last show, Chris, coming up here. We're starting with Charlotte and then getting into early March. And, I know that the deadline, the All-Star break's going to come in between all that, but you have a favorable schedule coming up. I think a couple games get Charlotte in there. You get Philly without Embiid. You got Memphis in there. Like, there's a decent schedule coming up over the next 6 or 7 games. I think you have a tough one because I think the Timberwolves coming up probably again here pretty soon. I think you got Denver at home as well. You're thinking that Dame will be back, hopefully. Pat will be here that Denver game. I think Chris is going to miss a couple weeks. That's my guess based on how he turned his ankle under KD. But I just like the addition of Pat Beverly, man. Like, he really reminds me in a similar. And that's what I was gonna say. If the Bucks and when the Bucks start to turn this thing around, because they're not gonna go 1-5, 2-10. They're not gonna do that. They're gonna fix this thing out. And it's gonna turn around. But when that starts to happen and this thing gets closer to the playoffs, do you think that you can see this Pat Beverly move? Do you think we'll look back on this and maybe we'll say, this is a little bit similar to PJ Tucker, where you bring in a guy. You're right. PJ Tucker's not like a needle mover, not this bit, but you bring in a guy that is going to give you absolute maximum effort at all times on the defensive end. It's going to be scrappy, going to be hungry, yelling, getting in people's face. Like, that's the dog mentality. He's a smaller dog than PJ Tucker, but he is. I mean, go right away and say, like, Pat Beverly, I'm talking on court, not off court, because Bobby Portis off court may be one of the toughest guys on the team. But on court, Pat Beverly might be the toughest player that the Bucks actually. I'm trying to think on court who the toughest player is the Bucks have. I think it might be Patrick Beverly.
With that, I wholeheartedly would agree with that. And it's all grit. It's no flash, right? And I like that, right? It'll be interesting to see how this thing works. One thing, let me ask you guys: do you think it's possible that Doc rolls out, at some point in the game a lineup of Dame, Pat Beverly, Chris, Jay, and Giannis, right? Like, do you think that that potentially one of
Absolutely.
the combinations that you see?
Absolutely. I'll do you one better though, JT, because I think there's a question in the chat where people are asking, do you start Patrick Beverly over a Malik Beasley? I don't think you. I just don't think. I don't think you do. I think that's way. I get it. He's a better defender. I just think it's way too small. Like you said, he's 6'1", 6'2". I think you're way too small.
And then you
If
don't
you're
have a
starting
backup
Pat
point
Beverly.
guard. Who's going to run the show? You
True.
won't have anybody to run the show. So probably won't happen. I've seen some criticism of Malik Beasley. It's just an off night, guys. Like your shooters aren't gonna shoot at 1 for 13 every night, and he's not
Chris,
going to either.
he is fallen off a cliff. I think over the past like 5 or 6, 7 games. Like his shooting is down. Like I think he's shooting around 31% over the last like 7 games. Or something
Yeah, but
like
that doesn't warrant him not ever playing ever again or touching the lineup ever again. It happens with shooters. You go through slumps, and he's the type of guy that's a volume scorer. And I do think at least getting him to the bench will do wonders for him because I think it's a lot less pressure on him to be out there and knocking down 40-50% of his shots. So yeah, I mean, but I think he could still help the team in terms of coming off the bench and scoring as a volume scorer, which we brought him in here for.
I got another question for you guys. So, do you think? And I know we said that you want to see more. Did John Horst make a mistake at the deadline, not trading Pat Connaughton, not trading Bobby Portis? Was it his fault? I mean, I'm sure he was working the phone lines and trying to do as much as he could, but did he make a mistake or did he not? I mean, I get everybody tries, but like, did he fulfill the duties of being the GM of the Bucks? Because I'm with you, JT. I think the move on the surface is a BB plus, but overall trade deadline, what do you give the only move the Bucks made? And the other move, don't forget, the Bucks did move on from Robin Lopez and Green Ranger. I'll get to your comment too. So after this, I have another question because Green Ranger wants to talk about Robin Lopez. But the Bucks moved Robin Lopez out for cash and open up a roster spot potentially for buyout, potentially for adding somebody from the G League. Just overall, I get that it wasn't enough, but give me your grade on the Bucks trade deadline as a whole.
So part of the reason why I'm going with a B, right? A solid B. Let's go 87, right? Not quite B plus range, but you're close to it. Is because a trade isn't so much of who you're bringing in as much as it's what you're giving up. We got Pat Beverly for a campaign that really, I don't really did Cam ever really find his way in the rotation? Sometimes he was playing, sometimes he wasn't. We gave it up for campaign in a second. I think we still have Portland second. So,
Yep.
Listen, I have absolutely a thumbs up on that, right? Because you did address a bit of a need. So, yeah, I like that trade. Now, you still have a bench that is incredibly feeble at this point, right? Like, there's no question about this with your bench. If you get 20 points off that bench a night, you're doing well, right? You are very lucky. And most of the time, you're going to be outscored by that bench, right? And depth is 100% an issue. And so I think Horst, listen, I didn't want him to give Bobby away. I didn't want him to give Bobby away. I wanted to actually use the strongest trade piece that we had in Bobby to get something back, get something substantial back. I couldn't keep up with all the rumors all day. I saw we were in on Wiggins. I saw we wanted Wiggins. I saw I think we were still pursuing DeJounte. There was a rumor that we were going to be interested in Dennis Schroeder. There was a bunch of stuff going on.
I would take Bev over Schroeder, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying. Like I think like I couldn't tell fact or fiction. Having said that, if it was a situation where we were going to have to give up Bobby and not get anything back in return, equal value that helped us, I'm not mad at them for saying, nah, we'll hang on to him because we're not just going to move him to move him. And Pat Bev, excuse me. My bad, man. Oh, y'all know it's late. So man, I was trying to hold that thing in, right? But
he had that bedtime. He missed last show, yawning on this one. Hey, we need like a 5-hour energy for JT.
Tired as hell. Let me tell y'all, man. Like, I forgot my train of thought, but man, go ahead and kick it to y'all.
Yeah, man. I do think that you didn't want to just give Bobby up for Grant Williams in a straight up swap. Obviously, Horst didn't want to do that either because he was trying to get Josh Green out of there too. And ultimately, you ended up with nothing. You couldn't get anything done in the Wiggins deal either. So it's just a situation where, yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. You got two guys that are pretty inconsistent that we thought were going to be moved ahead of this deadline, and then now it's kind of the ball's in their court and they have to figure it out. And so and they heard the noise of them being in trade talks as well. So they've just got to show some consistency, and I think that their experience and being under such a great franchise and a great coach and a great superstar like Giannis, I think they can figure it out. But I mean, I would probably lower the grade as a whole for the trade deadline because you got to get some bench depth, and that just wasn't there today. So I'd probably lower it to like a C.
John Hassel says Griffin lost his job because he played Beasley and didn't give the young guys run. That's just incorrect. He played the young guys more than they're playing now, so I don't get that one. Tony Massa Jr. says Bucks should have traded Bobby P straight up for Grant Williams. Instead, we trade for another 35-year-old player. We have a GM. Wood has the misguided belief that age and experience wins championships. Green Ranger says these young guys need to play. Even the closeouts on defense seem so much better or faster when Marjan, Ajax, and Derry Bird are in the game. I wanted to find. I can't find it now. The comment that Green Ranger had about asking about the
You want me
dysfunction.
to read it?
Yeah, you have. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got it. He says, Green Ranger says, do you think the Bucks are on the verge of becoming a dysfunctional franchise? When I see Robin Lopez get traded, but he's still at the game reading a book, it feels sort of like a clown show.
That's a funny point. Do I think that the organization is on the verge of being dysfunctional? No, because what does Robin Lopez reading a book have to do with anything? I think it's funny. I think the Lopez brothers are kind of, I won't say weird, but they're like different cats. Like Brooke Lopez is obsessed with Disney World, and you know how I feel about Disney World adults.
Bro, I don't trust adults that's obsessed with Disney World. That's off there.
Hey man, 30 years old, proposing on Splash Mountain. Like, come on.
But at least okay, you went to Disney World and proposed. I can see that. There's grown people that go to Disney World like 3-4 times a year, man. Like people with no kids. Just running around Disney World, grown men running around kids. Where you competing with 12-year-olds, get a spot in line on this roller coaster. Like, come on, man. Like, nah.
Hey, I remember during the pandemic. I remember during the pandemic when they closed down Disney World, and they had like a protest to open back up Disney World. You know, it was on no kids to protest. Bro, all adults wanting Disney World. I said, okay, y'all.
And you know what's whack, man? So I went to I was in Disney World from January 7th. I'm sorry, January 5th was when I was in Disneyland. And
you need to do the do like Trey.
And I got on. It was kind of dope because they still had like all the Christmas decorations up. So they still had the Christmas parade and everything because Disney does it every day until like the 7th or something like that. And I got on It's a Small World ride with my kids, right? Because my son is 5 and my daughter's 3, right? Appropriate. There was a man sitting in front of me on that boat, right? No kids, no nothing, just grown. And I was like, my G, like what we doing? You waiting on somebody? Like what's going on? Like you riding It's a Small World by yourself? Like. You know,
he had the lanes with the pins.
Man, look, I didn't know him. Tell that brother go to therapy. You gotta figure it out because this ain't it. You sitting on this a small world and you at least pushing 40 by yourself. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, to answer the question though, is it a dysfunctional franchise? I don't think so. Not right now, at least. I think there could be a situation where it does get to that point, especially if you flame out early and lose a series to a team that you're not supposed to, just because your age is up there and you've got 2 superstars that are top 75 players of all time. And, Dame didn't even really want to be here in the first place. So, like, I could see where it gets there.
Yeah, I could argue that I'm not sure that we are dysfunctional, but we could get there though. Listen,
how? Go ahead.
Because any way you cut it, we fired Bud 2 years after he won a championship. And I understand
Rightfully
that.
so.
You can say rightfully so, right? But we fired Bud 2 years after that man won a championship, and the team declined in both years. The next year they lost in the second round, and then the year after that they lost in the first. Right? It was just wow, right? We went right off a
That's
cliff
why. That's why he got fired.
under Bud. We hired AG, who's Giannis's guy. And then Giannis decides 40 games in, I can't play with him anymore. Then we hire, then we go get Doc Rivers as well, who is fair to be skeptical about Doc because we've all talked about Doc in the playoffs. We've talked about whatever, right? You trade for Dame, and like Chris just said, Dame didn't really want to be here. It's just kind of a mess, and we don't know where Dame's head's at right now. You could 100% argue that, like, maybe we're not dysfunctional, but there's some flashing lights here if they can eventually figure this thing out and get everything under control and get it settled. Like, yeah, like
I think I think that there's probably, of the 30 franchises in the NBA, that probably 26, 25 wish that they, if you call this dysfunctional or on the verge, I bet you about 25, 26 of them wish they had this level of dysfunction where you have Giannis, you have Dame, your title window's open, you have an opportunity to do some things. And again, talking about dysfunction for a team that, again, before Doc took over was 30 and 13. Like, that's some high level dysfunction to be that good.
And Trey, what do we do? What do we do? We were that good, and what do we do?
Well, yeah,
right. Thank you. Because our GM, we have to save him from himself at times. That's the problem.
I'm not gonna talk John. Again, I think this was. I could be wrong. I think he hired AG because that's what Giannis wanted. That's what everything. Again, the reports were out that John Horst wanted Nick Nurse, and then he didn't go get Nick Nurse, and so something was off about that. The only other thing we heard was Giannis wanted a coach to play basketball before. So if anything, the only person that's been dysfunctional to me, and that's why I put a lot of this, the AG hiring and the AG firing, it's squarely on the shoulders of Giannis, because
we gave him that right. We gave him that autonomy. We gave him that autonomy to do that. I mean, I get it, right?
You have to.
You don't have to.
But I'm saying that. Okay, you don't have to, but maybe he doesn't resign and resign for 3 years or early, because he didn't even have to. He really it was not financial. Remember, it was not financially beneficial for him to sign his extension when he did it. And so, because he really should have waited to get the most money, he would have waited another year. Values go up, and he could have signed at that point. So, the argument I make for John Horst is he did everything he could do to make the superstar happy and to keep your superstar in Milwaukee, because there's nothing worse dysfunction than Giannis chucking up the deuces and saying goodbye. And remember, Giannis was going on all through the media. If you remember that, Giannis never talked to a bunch of outlets. He was going to the media every other week. I got to have this. I got to have that. And so what does John Horst do? He trades Drew Holiday and goes against Damian Lillard. Now, it's not his fault that Damian Lillard hadn't played like an absolute superstar. That was the exact right move that John Horst made. So I don't know. John Horst pairs up Giannis and Dame, and then Dame has not delivered, and now we're questioning the pairing. I can't do that. And that's the same thing with the deadline today, where people were upset with the moves or the lack of moves that were made. And my answer to that would be, well, if you got to think about it, the Bucks made their move in the offseason. Because if the Bucks had because remember what happened in the offseason, if the Bucks had traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard today, and that was the deadline, and none of this happened, we're going through the year, and today was the deadline, and boom, you get Damian Lillard, everybody would have screamed, "Oh my God, the Bucks are winning a championship," because that's what they did in the offseason. So now you've just seen this, and now you go, well, I don't know that I like everything that I've seen so far. But I just have a hard time saying it's dysfunction, it's close to dysfunction at this point. I think, Giannis is in control. His brother's still on the roster. Like, Giannis is running things around there. So if there's dysfunction, Giannis has caused it.
Let me make this statement, and I'm going to say this now. Y'all can come at me if y'all want to in the comments, but here's the thing. Is it safe to say that Giannis has already burned his opportunity to give input and say on a coach, because he clearly don't know what the hell he's doing when it comes to picking out basketball minds? Giannis has no clue what he's doing, because if you went and pounded the table for Dr. Griffin, and then we got to get rid of Dr. Griffin 40 games in. Come on, man.
Right.
What are
Well,
we
I agree
doing?
with that.
What are we doing? We are not capitulating to you again. Now you're under contract, so you're gonna do whatever we want, and you can moan and groan about it, but you're still gonna be under contract. So like, but yeah, I don't know. I can see the arguments on both sides for this one too, because we have had 4 coaches in a year now, right? I mean, that's not. I mean, that's Laker territory, right? Sort of, with that kind of dysfunction, but that the firing of Bud.
Chris can't stay healthy. Kyle and Racine said that, and I agree.
Right. The situation with Chris can't stay healthy. The fact that you did not make a move at the deadline this year, and this seemed to be the time to do it. I just don't know. I just wish the story would come out as to what teams were asking for, if they were asking for too much or if they were just being unreasonable. Because I do think at some point you had to have had something decent on the table for Bob.
But I don't know, because again, you think about the guys that the Bucks were after, and the guys that would have been impact players the Bucks were after: DeJounte Murray, Andrew Wiggins, even Dorian Finney-Smith. None of those guys went anywhere. Like no, all those guys are at the same. You Bruce. Know, there wasn't Bruce Brown. There wasn't this big. The biggest moves were the New York Knicks making moves, and we can talk about those. But like, those guys that the Bucks are really targeting, that they would have probably felt comfortable giving up a Bobby Portis for. I would have been more upset if those guys had gone to contenders, and they did not. So that maybe speaks to your point, JT, of maybe the ask price was just a little bit too rich for everybody.
That's what I would think. But I am disappointed though, because we got to go back, and we had the same problems we had when we woke up yesterday. We got the same problems when we wake up tomorrow. Really? That's the issue.
Let me ask you this: as Colin Racine says, I'm getting mad. You guys won't acknowledge GA's in his prime. Chris is made of glass. Brook has lost 2 steps, and Dame is not the Dame we thought we signed. After that, our bench is trash. Cool. And my question is, like, what did you want to have happen? What did you like? Where did you see this team going? Who was? And if you think Chris is made of glass, why would? And you notice that. My question is, why would anybody else trade for Chris Middleton? And then if you were not going to get Brook Lopez or bring him back, who were you then going to go get at the deadline? I mean, excuse me, not at the deadline, but in free agency. Like there was like, I hear the talk, and I guess the Bucks are gonna have some opportunities to try and do some things next year if they don't win. I do agree. I think this is the last year of it. But again, remember when this thing ends and you trade Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, whatever it is, I think you can probably get younger and more athletic and better. I don't think you can get younger and more athletic than both of those guys. I don't know that either whoever you're going to get back is going to be at peak a better player right now than those players could be at peak. Like peak Chris Middleton right now. I've seen him play pretty well. I don't know if what he's going to do in the playoffs. I don't know if there's a guy that you're going to get back. Will they be more athletic? Yes. Will you be able to depend on them as much as you could depend on Chris, 21 Chris? I don't know that at all. So you could be going into it with a ton of question marks and potentially missing on guys. And again, that's just stuff that we don't really know right now. James Henderson says, who can we get in the buyout market? So again, remember that the first apron issue that is out now, and the new thing on that is I think there's like the teams that are past the first apron of the luxury tax, they can't get any buyout player that was making more than I believe is like $13 million, something like that. So a lot of people. So now PJ Tucker under that. Now I heard PJ Tucker is not going to be bought out. But like I said, people named Spencer Dinwiddie. The Bucks cannot acquire Spencer Dinwiddie if he's as a buyout target. The Bucks could go get a guy like Danilo Gallinari, who is going to be waived. You could go get a Kai Jones, who is at the crack house or whatever he's doing. There are like those are the type of guys that and Kai Jones is a free agent right now, but there will be some guys that are available. Who's a big Bismack Biyombo? There are gonna be some of those. I'm just saying those are the people that the Bucks are gonna be able to acquire and yeah. So I mean, people they're just asking like those are the guys that you're gonna be able to go get.
Yeah, that ain't it. that ain't it. It's tough. I mean, yeah, they're in a bad spot right now. I also think that, yeah, you definitely have to relook the roster if they end up flaming out or losing in the playoffs. You have no choice. I mean, these guys are old now, and they don't bring much anymore if they obviously lose and stuff. But that's not the problem right now. So I can wait and stick this thing out.
I can stick it out too because again, ultimately this team is in the same spot. If Damian, like we're having a totally different discussion, and I think I've seen enough to it. Damian Lillard has it in him to like go on a run during the back half of the season and into the playoffs. That's like, I don't even know that it has to be like magical. It just has to be like really, really good. Like you got to be a 25 plus a night guy consistently on good shooting. If you can do that, and Giannis is going to be his normal 30 plus, and then Chris is going to do, you have a shot. Like, but you can't inconsistent Dame. I don't think you have a chance with the way Dame is playing up and down right now. I don't think the Bucks have a chance to, because it takes too much to, you have to win. You have to be on your game every single night in the playoffs. And right now, Dame has not shown that, but he has shown me enough that there are nights that he can tap into that if he does that on a consistent basis, I like the Bucks' chances as much as anybody.
Would agree with that. Would wholeheartedly agree with that. And you're right. I mean, it's what, 28 games that Dame locks in. Maybe playoff Dame is a thing, right? Unfortunately, we saw some of it in Portland, but it was a lot of quick exits for that team. So maybe it does. And again, I agree with you. Here's one of two things need to happen: either Dame needs to go back to being elite, or the role players on this team have to consistently be role players and do their part. And it's more likely that Dame becomes elite than us being able to consistently rely on Bobby and Pat Beasley and all these other guys here, right? Like I think the easier thing is for Dame to return to form and be the Dame he was before he got to Milwaukee.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so I think that's where we are on that. King of Kings says the reason why teams in the East didn't trade was because of Joel and the Bucks falling. I don't know that, but didn't trade because I don't think that's true. The Knicks definitely gunned for it, and I think the Knicks did a really good job gunning for it. Again, I think, and we'll talk about that in our look around, but I think the Knicks did a pretty, I think the Knicks helped themselves because they're an injury. You never know what happens with injuries. They're an injury or two away from being in the Eastern Conference Finals, from maybe representing Jason Tatum turns an ankle, and the Knicks can then win that type of series against Boston. So I think, they did that. Charlie Bubs 224 says if Horse keeps us under the second apron, and they can still aggregate salaries in a trade, they can still aggregate salaries in a trade during the offseason, it's fine. All the same trade targets will be available during the offseason. Robert Henry says, I'd like to see Giannis be more Jordan-like, be a bully to teammates that don't produce. Yeah, I just don't think that's his MO to be a bully. I don't think that's what. I just don't think that's Giannis' personality. Let's read a couple of comments from Twitter that we have here. Let's see what we got on the Twitter. At TFrank414 says Bucks are old, washed over the hill, and decided to get even older at the deadline. Kept Brooke and Chris too long. They will have zero value or retire, so they won't be moved. Kept Pat over Dante. This year is a wrap, and should start having combos about moving Giannis and a rebuild. Like, see, that's some of the stuff just stupid to me. Like, what are we talking about? Move Giannis and a rebuild. Like,
that can't happen. Especially after you're paying him all this money and, you just signed him to a big contract. That can't happen. But what I will say is they have to perform better in the NBA draft. It'll be crucial for them to do that in case they don't get the offers that they want in the offseason if there's a situation where they've got to make some moves in that starting lineup.
Well, how about this? You got to play your young guys. That's what you got to do. Like, because I'll tell you who's looking okay right now. Dante DiVincenzo. So that's looking right now like that was a pretty good draft pick. It might have took a minute to pan out. Dante DiVincenzo's out balling right now. Yeah, okay. It might take a few. That's what when you draft at 17, 18, 20 and beyond, some of those guys take a minute to pan out. Who knew?
Yeah, but
you got AJ Green looks pretty good to me. Sam Merrill right now in Cleveland is a legitimate rotational player. You traded him away, and I'm not saying you had to trade him away because that was what you had to do. because you're trying to get better and win in the moment. Sam Merrill's a rotational player out in Cleveland, 2nd round pick. Andre Jackson Jr. is on your team right now. You got to play. I'm telling you, Marjon Beauchamp, I promise you, if the Bucks end up trading him away at some point, I guarantee you 3-4 years down the line, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a rotational player somewhere. Like, he has talent. I don't know. That's me, though.
Yeah, I mean, but the Bucks aren't really in a situation where they can wait that out. Giannis will be 35 by the time we get a good player, if that's the logic. So, I mean, there are anomalies in there, and you just got to find them. You really realistically haven't performed well in the draft.
I get, like I said, I just think, yeah.
And these guys, bro, do we want to talk about the 60th pick a couple years ago, the Greek kid that they just drafted because he had the same agent as Giannis, like those type of picks. Like what was that? I don't even know his name. I don't even know dude's name. And
who went before him and who went after him?
I can't remember that, but
all those guys in that. That's my point. All those guys, most of the guys in those ranges are not doing anything. It's a crapshoot at 55.
But it feels like Horse is going more for projects than it does impact. I mean, there's guys all around the board who can impact the game at least a little bit and not get DMPs for 3 years and then you got to trade them.
When you're taking guys during there, isn't that what you're pretty much going for? Mostly projects.
No.
Because if you're if you're going 60th and your action impact, you would go quicker than that typically, right? Like you're trying to find a diamond in the rough at that point, and every so often you're gonna hit on the Sam Merrill. AJ Green looks like a really good player. Donnie DiVincenzo is
who
now
was undrafted, by the way.
Undrafted, right? So you don't, and you're 60, you might as well be undrafted. Like those are the type of players that you're looking at. So I mean, I guess in the draft, I think I somewhat agree with you, but I do feel like Horse has been hampered because he hasn't really had the opportunity of drafting like top 10, top 15 guys. That's by virtue of winning so much. But the other thing is you have to be willing to play those guys. And so when they get in your organization, Mike Budenholzer not playing them. Like you've got to play like you look at Miami. Miami's not some great basketball team right now. They're losing a bunch of games, but they're playing hot kids. They're gonna play their guys. And for whatever reason, we choose not to run our guys out there. So will it surprise me in the playoffs if Jaquez over there in Miami's out balling? No, it won't, because he plays 75 games all year. Will it surprise me if Andre Jackson Jr. is not ready to play in the playoffs this year? No, because he couldn't get time. And I'll tell you, I'm looking at Andre Jackson Jr. He can play. Like there's no question about it. He can provide a spark and an impact and do something. But if you're not going to play him, I can't then look back and say, well, we shouldn't have drafted him. I gotta get a guy a chance.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with that there. I mean, I think you definitely got to get the young guys some more burn, but I just think that some of the bad has outweighed the good in terms of draft performance for John Horst. And we don't have we wouldn't have the time. This isn't a time frame to wait 3 years, even if you are playing these guys to pan out. Like that's not what we're going to be able to do.
King of Kings says Killian Hayes. like that's a bad pick. Killian Hayes went 7th overall and has been released. That's a bad pick. Killian Hayes is a young 6'5" point guard. He can't shoot, but is a great defender. Get out of here, man. King, come on. Killian Hayes is trash. A 2-pack of ass. And trash.
But I want to say this though. When Green Ranger steps in and says this isn't the NFL, late picks are projects. There's 2 rounds. There's 60 picks. You realize how many college basketball players can impact the game right away? You look at a Marcus Sasser who was late first round. He's over there. I mean, yeah, he's playing for Detroit. But he's hooping. And that was a guy who we could have traded up for. We don't have a fucking backup point guard. Oh, sorry, my bad. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. But like it's just a situation where you can't say that late picks are always projects. And I know I go back to the Dayton stuff, but Toumani Camara was picked 54th. Toumani Camara was picked 54th, and he would be a starting wing on this team. Toumani Camara would be a starting wing.
There it
Come on now.
is.
We
Starting
have no
Chris.
There,
And
defense. We have no
I like
defense.
somebody.
We have no defense. Nobody
I
plays
like
defense.
Lamar. He's not starting.
Okay, all right, well, I'll say this. He'd get more minutes than Andre Jackson Jr. would. He would help this team a lot more than Andre Jackson Jr. would, who you pick 20 spots ahead of. So it's not always projects in the 50 through 60th pick. It's not always projects. You can find people who can impact the game right away, and I'm not seeing it from John Horst.
You got to plug Dayton.
I'm just saying.
Like
I'm just
Chris got a
saying.
personal grudge here. What's
No,
going
it's
on?
just it's
Look at
bad.
Phil O'Hare.
I think it's because I follow the college basketball game a lot more than a lot of people. So obviously you're gonna have busts in the second round, but there's also opportunities to go in. Look, they work out like 300 people. Like you can find somebody who you can take that can impact the game more than Andre Jackson Jr., who can't shoot the ball, who provides damn near nothing offensively. Missed a floater tonight that was wide open, and that might have been his only shot. Like the guy, he it felt like was a project. At 30, whatever, 40, whatever, he got picked. So it's just like you got to do better in drafting guys that can impact your squad a little bit better. I don't know. My bad. Tangent.
Yeah, well, Trent Comp says Rashad Vaughn, he was trash. DJ Wilson, Thon Maker, Dante Marshall. Again, you did. I'm not going there on Dante. Like Dante has proven to be a good pick. Like he was a good pick.
What was our problem with Dante?
We
Well,
won the
he
finals because
wasn't-
Dante got hurt.
Well,
Like he was
the
all
issue-
god awful during that regular season.
He was starting, but your issue with Dante was that he wasn't this impact player or this great player at 24, 25. I don't know how old he is right now, but yeah, like clearly there was talent there. That's all I'm saying.
But he didn't really show it in the
talent.
playoffs. That's the thing. That's why we kept losing. That's why That's why in the bubble we was shooting out of games.
What a mess.
And then all of a sudden he gets hurt. He gets hurt,
young
and
player.
then we win the finals.
He's a young player, so yeah, we will see what he we'll see what he looks like with the Knicks, and we'll see if he shoots them out the playoffs or what happens with them. Let me see another comment here. At Rashad Burns says, need to see how Doc looks with a fully healthy roster and his game plan fully implemented. Should look way different after the All-Star break. Justin MKE says, got to tear this team down to the ground and rebuild it. We have a favorable stretch of games coming up. Hopefully Doc can figure it out. At Drew Barringer says, can we fast forward to April already? And then I'll do one more. Well, sir, the Heart 96 says Ajax has to start. At Mr. Miyagi Chin says Doc stinks. And so it's funny. And then at JR Horvath says, this is a mess. I think they have to trade Brook and try to move Middleton for younger assets this summer. You can then package Bobby and Pat, but all you keep going forward are 0 and 34, Marshawn, AJJ, and Andre Jackson Jr. and Green. You need size and athleticism. Crowder, Malik, Beverly will all walk. So, again, just a lot of different thoughts coming in. King says Stanley Johnson would help. Great defender, 6'7", 240, 27, can't shoot, but can switch 1 through 5. Green Ranger says Kerr played Kuminga consistently. Now look at him. There's another guy. Well, again, you got to play him, and now
okay, but did we not do
player.
okay to start the season? Did we not give Marjon Beauchamp an opportunity, and he was just god awful? Is that not a thing? Did that not happen this year? Because I remember watching it, and it was awful. He doesn't even deserve minutes.
Yes, but he ain't been no worse than Pat Connaughton, and sometimes you roll Pat Connaughton out for 30 minutes. So that's what Marjon Beauchamp does not look any worse than Pat Connaughton at all. And for whatever reason, you trust a 30-year-old Pat Connaughton to continue to play minutes that, again, I would rather give to a younger developing player than, because Pat Connaughton can always come in and do whatever the hell he does. So I agree with you. Yes, Marjon did get time early to start the season, and we kind of gave up on it. But I would, yeah, this to me. But again, we said this all the time. This is what the regular season is for. You gotta let these guys kind of run, and you want to see what happens with your players. And you may go through some losses, but we talked about this over and over again about how we weren't going to judge all the regular stuff that happened in the regular season, and we were going to really judge the Bucks in the playoffs. And yeah, like this, I thought that's what it was. But then, of course, you barely beat the Pistons, and you got to fire the coach. So That's where we are. Let's give out some game balls and let's see where you guys going on game balls. I'll let you guys go first.
You gotta give it to your boy Derry Bird. Well deserved, man. Was this a career high for Derry Bird?
Yes.
Well deserved career high for your boy Derry Bird, man. This is a beautiful, beautiful game from him, man. I mean, I'm gonna read a stat line one more time: 9 for 11, 7 for 8 from three, 27 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds. Man, all that work in 22 minutes? Man, great work. Get that man his game ball. He's definitely earned it.
Yeah, I'll give it to Jay Crowder tonight. I thought he played well. It was good to see that he kind of got his step under him a little bit. At least, it felt like he was kind of slow in the past couple games, but tonight didn't look that way. So I'll give it to Jay.
You know me, you got to win to get in. I'm going to give it to Rudy Gobert. I thought he did a really good job tonight, 16, 11, 4 assists. One steal, didn't have any blocks. Registered is 8 for 9 from the field. No blocks, but he impacted a lot of shots he impacted a ton of shots for that Giannis took, and I thought he really made life hard on Giannis. I know they packed the paint a little bit, but a good job from Rudy Gobert. Colin Racine says Derry Bird is offensive to me. Okay. What's his name? 129-105. The Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Let's look around the league a bit, and then we'll get some trades. The Trailblazers are up 92-69 over the Pistons right now. I'm watching the Nuggets up by 9 over the Lakers right now. The Magic 127-111 over the Spurs. The Pacers dropped one to the Warriors. Steph had a big night. Steph puts up I know you're joking, Kyle. Steph puts up 42. So that's a big night for him. The Mavericks beat the Knicks. Cavaliers continue rolling. They beat the Nets. And so the result of the Cavaliers winning, I believe the Bucks are now sitting 4th place in the East. Excuse me. So I guess because the Knicks lost, the Bucks are in a statistical tie they're in 3rd, and both them and the Knicks have the same record of 33-19. Those teams are now both 2 games behind the Cleveland Cavaliers for 2nd. The Bulls beat the Grizzlies tonight, and then the Suns beat the Jazz. Elsewhere at the deadline, you saw the Celtics pick up a couple players today. You saw the Sixers get Buddy Hield. They gave the Pacers got Korkmaz, Doug McDermott, a 2024 second, 2029 second. And then I wanted to get to what the Knicks did. So the Knicks, I think, had the biggest day to me. I think you could say the Knicks or the Mavs had the biggest day. So the Mavericks got Daniel Gafford. The Wizards got Rashawn Holmes from that deal. And then the Knicks got Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic, giving up Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 future seconds. And then you saw a couple, like I said, the Hornets. The Mavs also got P.J. Washington, and the Hornets are getting Grant Williams, Seth Curry. The Suns got Royce O'Neal. Of course, the Bucks get Patrick Beverly. Give me your winners, losers from the deadline today.
Oh, look, the Knicks. I think the Knicks have killed it. I think the Knicks had a better day than probably anybody else in the league. You know, I love him. I always mess his name. I love Bogdanovic. Like, listen, I wanted him in Milwaukee. Now you vetoed that when I was talking about this a long time ago. But yeah, I think getting Burks and Bogdanovic and what the Knicks have done now is a new. What's the deal with a newbie? He's gonna be out for a little bit?
Oh, OG Anunoby. Yeah, he'll
Anunoby. Come on, man. You got the funny last name.
All right,
you know people ain't gonna say him right. Like, listen, the only one I know is Giannis, but
yeah, I think he will be out for a second, but I think he'll be okay though.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I think the Knicks won the trade deadline today.
Let me ask you this: do you think that the Knicks? Because a lot of people are saying, they have made themselves viable as contenders. Do you agree with that? Are they contenders to get out of the East?
No, I think they're going to be a very good, solid young team. I'm not sure I buy them as contenders. I think this team will be able to compete. They 100% will be able to, I think, be able to compete. But I'm just not convinced that the Knicks can make it out of the second round. I think you can wholeheartedly, yeah, you can win first round series, but I'm not convinced that the Knicks can beat the Bucks if the Bucks are at their best and the Knicks are at their best. I just don't think New York has a chance, right? I don't think the Knicks can beat Boston either if they're at their best and Boston's at their best. I just think I don't see it. Philly's no longer a factor at this point, right? I think we can mail it in. Philly's done. I think you've made that clear on Reddit. Um, that Philly's completely cooked. You remember that team? What's that team? Yeah, the Pacers. You remember when everybody was talking about, oh yeah, Indiana. Yeah, okay. Yeah, how's that worked out? Right?
They're
Like
5-5 in their last 10.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so they're cooked. The Heat. I mean, yeah. Look, you can't rely on catching lightning in the bottle to be factors, right? Like you can't. And what happened last year was absolutely magical for Miami. But are we going to bet on that happening again? I think this is a 3-team race, right? I think it's the Celtics, the Bucks, and maybe the Cavaliers if you really want to, if you really just want a third team to round it out. But the way I see it, before today and before today and tomorrow, it's still gonna be the same thing. It's gonna be the Celtics and the Bucks really running this thing in the East. One of these two teams is gonna come out.
Yeah, I think as long as the Knicks have Julius Randle at the helm, and they're probably cooked. I don't think that this. I mean, the trades are good for him, but I don't think that Julius Randle is going to be able to perform consistently in the playoffs. But I would say for my winners, I would say, okay, I'm going to go hand in hand with this one trade. I'm going to say Oklahoma City won the deadline because they basically shipped off two guys that they didn't play, and then they get a veteran to come off the bench. So I think that
I got Gordon Hayward. Yeah,
I think that they won that. And then I would say Charlotte lost it because they weren't able to find a deal for Miles Bridges. So
Charlotte's still, so Bridges is coming back, but Charlotte is still going to be able to, because I think he's a restricted free agent, right?
Yeah.
So my guess is Charlotte's going to match whatever. My guess is whoever wants Miles Bridges is going to offer him. Charlotte's going to match it, and then they'll probably do some type of sign and trade or something of that nature. I still think they're going to get off of Miles Bridges. So, yeah. But yeah, they didn't find a deal for him at the deadline. No. So yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I think just that alone, if it just poses the risk that if he does leave and they don't match it or whatever, that you just basically just let him walk, and so that's kind of tough for that group. But I will say, I think Trey Mann and Brandon Miller and LaMelo, they could be all right. But it's just I think that they kind of, especially also dealing Terry out of there. I mean, they kind of had to because he's getting older. But yeah, I just think Charlotte is just a bad deadline for them.
Yeah, I'm torn in between the Mavs and the Knicks, but I do think the Knicks did what they were supposed to do, and they got themselves, they placed themselves, JT. I would say in position. I mentioned this earlier, but they placed themselves in position to strike if there's an injury. Chris Middleton, and like I said, if Chris Middleton just turned his ankle against when Kevin Durant landed under him against Phoenix. If that happens in the series against the Knicks, it's going to be, and Dame is not playing like Dame. They could beat the Bucks, right? They could beat, like I said, Jason Tatum turned his ankle. They could beat a Cleveland if Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland or something like that were to get injured. Like if an impact player, not even a number one, but if an impact player to any other team gets hurt, I think the Knicks did a really good. And again, this happens every single year. Like right, every single year, there's an injury is a big part of the playoffs. And then I think the other thing that makes sense for the Knicks is you look and there goes Joel Embiid, and I think he's going to come back, but who knows what type of health he's going to look like, what he's going to look like when he comes back. You have to do what you do to set yourself up to where any given scenario you can advance. And so I think the Knicks did a really good job of that. I just don't think you can win a championship with Jalen Brunson being your best player. But we will see. But again, I appreciate the effort from New York, and I think it is always fun when the New York Knicks are good, right? When I think that's a very fun fan base, and they do they do a real good job. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. See, Green Ranger says Dame's my guy. If he plays inconsistent, the Knicks can absolutely beat us. Yeah, I would agree with that. He's soaking the Pacers, Cavs, and anyone else. I don't disagree. Like, yeah, like if Dame don't get it together, the Bucks are gonna be in some. I think the Bucks are gonna be in a little bit of trouble. Let's wrap this thing up tonight, fellas. 129-105. The Timberwolves beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Guys, you got any final thoughts on Minnesota and the Bucks, or anything about the Bucks tonight? Again, they play tomorrow night against the Charlotte Hornets. And again, that looks like the best time. Hopefully, Dame's back. Looks like a good time to see if Doc Rivers can get his second win.
Oh shit! I got a Charlie horse. I got it all. Oh, Joe. Oh.
You need a banana. Give him a banana. Yeah, I think this is. I think you get Pat Bev in, and we see what happens. I think it's a good addition, and I'm interested to see how this team gels. And I also want to address that I'm not justifying Pat Connaughton getting 30+ minutes. What I'm saying is, you wouldn't have these issues if you didn't draft so much inconsistent players. Like Marjon Beauchamp is lighting it up in the summer league, and then he gets in the NBA and acts like he can't put the ball in the basket or he's never touched a basketball before. Andre Jackson Jr. is a key piece to a national championship team in college, and you really haven't seen much of what he brings to a title contender in the NBA. So I just think that you could have had better players to be more confident in playing these young guys. I'm not justifying 30+ minutes by Pat. Never would I do that. I'm a big fan. I was a big believer in trade Pat before the deadline. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
JT, I give you a chance now. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, man. That's how you know it's too late. But
all right.
No, look. I think Bucks are 1-5 under Doc. Let's really hope that we don't see 1-6 under Doc. Right? We know we're a much better team than what we've seen recently. And as we still try to figure this out, we still got to win. You got to win the game. You got to win the game, especially the games you're supposed to win. So let's hope Doc turns this thing around. Looking forward to see Patrick Beverley and how this is going to work out, what those rotations are going to look like with him in there. And yeah, let's get ready for the second half of the season, fellas. Right? We 10 days out from the All-Star break, so man, after that it's go time.
Yeah, absolutely, it's go time. Bucks got the Hornets tomorrow night, and then they'll round things out before the break with Nuggets, Heat, and Grizzlies. And again, Nuggets will be tough. But the Heat are reeling. They have not played very, very good basketball, and the Grizzlies are not good either. So I think Doc, let me call a shot here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 games before the deadline. I need the Bucks to go 3-1 in this 4 games right here. I need you to win 3 out of your next 4. I need you to beat the Hornets. I'll give you a pass against the Nuggets. I'll let you split Nuggets or Heat, whichever one. But you got to win 2 out of those next 3: Nuggets, Heat, and then Grizzlies, and I'll be a happy camper for the Milwaukee Bucks. There we go. So a good show tonight, fellas. Appreciate everybody listening and watching the Cream City crossover as you do every single night. Keep the follows, likes, subscribes, all of that up. Helps us out tremendously. Want to thank our sponsors for the night, the Law Office of Daly M. Johnson. Giving you criminal defense needs at 608-893-8370. Call him if you're in South Central or Central Wisconsin, anywhere in Wisconsin. He will come and help you out with all of your defensive needs when you need defense off of the court. We'll be back tomorrow night. It's been a Cream City Media Group production. Any final words from you guys?
I'll take no with nickels.
All right,